Jessica Cox, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Glad to be on.
Absolutely. And I thought we would start off if you want to just give our listeners kind of an idea and a look into what life was like for little Jessica growing up.
Well, it's pretty obvious that I don't have arms. And for me, that was very hard in the beginning. And it wasn't so much hard to do the things that I wanted to do without hands and arms, which everyone uses, because I could use my feet. But the hardest part about being born without arms was almost the stigma and going through every single day and having to deal with how the outside world reacted to my difference. And it wasn't always positive for sure. And that was
Yeah.
probably the hardest part.
Was just the acceptance from everybody around you.
Exactly. And I always felt like I needed to help myself be accepted. But I later learned that it's just important to be confident in who I am. And it doesn't matter if people accept me or not accept me. It's, as long as I can be the best version of myself, that's the best I can do.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I'm curious for you because like one of the things I was listening to and doing some research on you was like, you almost kind of grew up with this and totally understandable, this like anger or just like, this question of like, why me? And
Yes.
it's really interesting as I'm saying this. So I had cancer 5 years ago. I'm healthy today, but I went through a similar sort of thing of, I'm a big believer everything happens for a reason. But at
Hmm.
some point you go, well, what is that reason? Or why did that happen? And so I'm curious for you, like, as you kind of grew up with this questioning of like, why me? Why is this? Like, how did you kind of come to a full circle with that or accepting that? And then, obviously it's led to incredible things, but I'm curious, how did you get to that point?
Well, I think you said it very well when you said, how did you deal with the anger? Because I was actually a very angry child growing up. And I asked the why me? Why did God make me this way? Why am I
Hmm.
different than my brother and sister and my friends at school? And it was very much a time of frustration and anger and wondering why I was the only one who was different. Um, it took many years to finally come to terms with it, to accept it, and to kind of move forward. I would say that my parents were a great foundation for me to
Yeah.
help me kind of understand that there is a greater purpose and that I'll get through it and just be patient. But it was hard in the moment. It was very hard, to be honest. The human need to be accepted, to feel like, um,
Totally.
yeah, it was very difficult. And I think for me, though, I found ways to channel that anger and frustration. One of the things my mom was wonderful about doing was getting me involved in activities. And I did
Hmm.
a lot of things like I would kick my brother and sister out of anger and frustration. I mean, they'll tell you I had tantrums even till up until the age where it wasn't really appropriate to throw a tantrum anymore. And
Yeah.
my mom enrolled me in Taekwondo, and I would just channel it in Taekwondo. And it's
That's
amazing
awesome.
how you find a way to redirect those angry feelings and kind of take them out in different ways.
Yeah. That's so cool. And so did you feel like being able to put that, I guess, anger in those other areas, it kind of allowed you to like decompress and then just live your life a little easier?
It really did help me decompress. And at the same time, it kind of had this byproduct of that confidence when you achieve something.
Yeah.
And I became essentially addicted to doing new things because of the feeling of accomplishment afterwards, that
Hmm.
boost, the self-confidence, the self-esteem boost that you get when you do something and you're able to achieve your goal.
Yeah. That makes total sense looking at where your life went after initially getting into Taekwondo. And that seems like that's a theme you've continued to live, which is pretty cool. So I'm curious, like, let's say we jump forward. Eventually you go to school, right? And you're going to college, I believe out in Arizona, correct?
Hmm.
And so
University of Arizona.
so U of A. And so I'm
Hmm.
curious for you, like, as you got sort of to the tail end of school, kind of what was going through your head there? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do with your life? Were you kind of just um, cruising? Where were you at?
I mean, it brings a smile to my face when you bring me
Yeah.
back to that space because we were all there and some people are there right now. And it's such a like a time of like a period where you're like wondering, how am I going to contribute to the world? What am I going to
Yeah.
do next? You have your whole life ahead of you. And I just remember being there and feeling so compelled to do something, but I didn't know what it was going to be. I knew that I was going to put my prints on this world in a way that was going to be amazing. And I
I
felt like I
love that.
really wanted to help people and help the world and use my life circumstances to do so. But I didn't know what it was going to be. So I was in that place of like searching of what am I going to do and just throwing a whole bunch of things out there and trying different things to see what really gelled with me. And just by trial and error, I mean, finding out I had no idea that aviation was going to be something in my life. I was up until 21, never went on a flight in a small plane ever up to the age
Yeah.
of 21. And here I was graduating college. And right after college, thinking, what's next? I had a degree in psychology, but you can do anything with psychology. I mean, most people go on
Right.
to get a master's or PhD. And I wasn't ready to go into more schooling after 4 years. I had enough of that. And I was like, what
Yeah.
am I going to do? And there, sure enough, I literally, probably August of the year that I graduated college, I was speaking at an event, and this person literally walks up to me and says, how would you like to go up in a small plane? And I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, I'm not really interested in aviation. I'm terrified of flying. Why would I do
Yeah.
this? And so it was funny how some things will lead to opportunities that you would never have guessed if you're open. You leave yourself open. You do a lot of different things to see what is going to work with you and what is going to be a passion, what's not going to work.
Yeah. I'm curious when you say you graduated and you just kind of started experimenting with things, what were some of the things you started experimenting with? Like,
Um, let's see.
like
I
were
knew
you
I was
trying different jobs? Were you just kind of doing different things as like an entrepreneurial sense, or you were
well,
speaking,
I
obviously
had
it
a
sounds like.
job. I didn't really have paid speaking gigs at the time. So I had the side job. It was like a secretary or some job to kind of help me get some money because we have to survive somehow.
For sure.
And I was like, you know, just figuring out that I knew that I wanted to be my own boss, but I didn't go to business school. So I wasn't like on the same track that most people maybe who would go for, furthering their education, they go get a degree in business. But I knew I wanted to be my own boss because I wanted the flexibility, I wanted the freedom, and I wanted to be not have to, do the whole employee thing. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, if I want to be my own boss, and I was dabbling in motivational speaking as a volunteer just to kind of inspire like young
Yeah.
people, go to different Rotary clubs, little meetings here and there that were
Yeah.
local. And I was like, well, why don't I combine not only the degree in psychology, but my need to be my own boss and start my own business as a speaker?
Hmm. Love it. That's so cool. Awesome. And so one thing I'm curious as well is so, obviously in doing research on you, you have done a ridiculous amount of incredible things in your life. You know what I mean? Like flying planes, obviously that's a big one. I noticed you play piano, drive cars, martial arts, like you do all of these things with your feet, which is even like I was watching some of the videos too, like flying the plane with your feet, driving with your feet, just as we're here sipping the coffee. It's like all these things that are, very normal because that's just your life. I'd be
Uh-huh.
curious, like, what does the process look like for you to take on one of these new things? Because, like you said, you have this sort of addiction to accomplishment, right? It's like, let me try something,
Mm-hmm.
accomplish it, and you feel amazing. So, what does that process look like as you go through that? Especially because for a lot of these things, you're probably the first person that's doing it the way you're doing it because most people aren't doing it that way because they have arms.
Yeah. But here's the advantage I had. Growing up, I didn't know how to live life without arms unless I just started doing with my feet. And I just tackled everything from learning how to eat with my toes to picking up a
Yeah.
cup with my foot, like you saw a little bit ago.
Yeah.
I didn't think twice about those things, but there were a lot of things that took a lot longer for me to achieve, like getting dressed on my own. or learning how to carry something. And so those things that took me longer than the average person ended up building resilience and
Mm,
this mindset of how to tackle something, how to have the super focus, the hyper focus, and then doing it, step by step and not giving up. And so that type of, I guess you could call it a muscle because we all have it. That muscle
absolutely.
had to be strengthened out of necessity for my own survival. And
Hmm.
so by the time I was an adult, it was second nature. So I wanted to go learn how to surf. I said, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to get on the board. And these other challenges that came later in life, I already had this process that was built in me out of
Yeah,
necessity, that everyone has, and the muscle was just strengthened.
I love that. That's so cool. So do you surf now as well?
I've tried surfing. I'm not like a real like avid surfer. I mean, I live in Arizona, but I've done
Yeah,
surfing.
that's true.
I've gotten on the board and done a couple waves and things. So I've got that far as a beginner. And I've learned how to scuba dive and do other things. And just any opportunity that crosses my path, I kind of just take it and tackle it and break it up so I can do it.
Yeah. I love that. That's so cool. One quote that you said, I think I was listening to this on a podcast that you said, and this is a theme that I've seen in your life is like just having a ridiculous amount of faith. And one of the things I heard you talk about, and I believe it was when you were first taking off in the plane on your own for the first time, which is like a major thing. And you said it takes a lot of faith to do something despite the emotional fear that is attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be curious if you could just speak on that because I think for so many things we accomplish in our life or we want to achieve in our life, there is this ridiculous amount of fear sometimes that surrounds it. And I'd be curious if
Yeah.
you could explain how you've learned to work through some of those things.
Oh gosh, that's such a powerful question because it brings up so much, and I could probably take that question and answer it for days and days about how important faith is. Because um, there were a lot of times, everyone has something they're afraid of, whether it's flying a plane or heights or whatever it is. And for me, it was just about knowing that my faith and God is tremendous enough that He's going to help me along the way, and having that kind of support, because I think we all have self doubt of what we can do,
Yeah.
but having that reinforcement and that affirmation that yeah, there, we're only human, we have limits, but we do have strength behind us holding us up. It allows us to do the things that a lot of people think are impossible, that even ourselves, like if you were to ask me maybe like, five, let's see, more like 10 years ago, would you ever fly a plane? I'd be like, that's impossible. But
Yeah.
as you brought it back up earlier, it's that faith and knowing that even though I'm terrified of this, I have faith in God that He's going to be with me through it and get me to do what it is I needed to do in order to be successful at it.
Yeah. I love that. What would you say is the next big thing that you want to accomplish? Because it seems like you're always you're up for a good challenge. So what would you say is the next big challenge you want to tackle?
I think the next big thing for me is really focusing in on aviation and how I can inspire more people with that. Because right now we're tackling a new challenge in aviation. It's kind of a little secret right now, but
Hmm.
we're hopefully going to go public with it at some point. But
Love
flying with my feet is one thing because I'm certified as a sport pilot. But we're
that.
taking on a new challenge in aviation, and it's exciting, and it's a huge endeavor that's going to take a couple years. But we're excited to
Love it.
get started on that, continue to stretch and grow, and that's what I'm focused in. And at the same time, I'm also working on my nonprofit that helps people with disabilities, and that
Love
giving
that.
back is so important.
Yeah. That is so cool. And so I would be curious, like, let's say, someone's listening to this and they're kind of at a point in their life where, they just feel stuck, not sure what they want to do next. And they're feeling kind of like down in the dumps, almost like the world is against them a little bit.
Yeah.
What would it like a piece of advice that you would give them on just like taking that next step and really pushing through? Because like when you push through that adversity, there really can be some beautiful things on the other side.
Yeah, and I think it's when we're at our lowest, we don't realize that we are so close to reaching that incredible thing that's going to happen in our life. So I would highly recommend anyone who's in that spot in their life, because, on occasion we all are there, is just to push through, because you never know what's going to come out of that situation when you're at your lowest. And usually that's a point when the greatest thing will happen in your life, when you push
Yeah,
past that.
right. I love it. So cool. And if you could go back, let's say to your younger self, kind of when you were in those moments of just like frustration and trying to just figure everything out and why this is happening, like what is the piece of advice you would go back and maybe give your younger self today?
Okay, I would give myself as a young, you mean like young kid, or you think about
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
space
Like,
in that life? Okay. Um, so as a young child, I would definitely say, don't worry about feeling like you want to be like everyone else. There's a wonderful life in front of you. And the moment you start to be confident about it, it's amazing how things start to transform. And then if I were to go back to my younger self when I was searching right out of college for what's
yeah.
next and what am I going to do, I think I felt like I had to do it all in one moment. And it
Hmm.
didn't have to be all at once. In fact, it's the journey that makes you who you are. And that's what I would have probably said is, slow down, don't take a breath, don't feel like you have to do it all at once. It's going to be a
Yeah.
tremendous journey, but enjoy it along the way. Don't get so rushed that you're so focused on getting it done that you
Hmm.
can't even enjoy the ride.
Yeah. That's so true. It's like sometimes we get so caught up in when I get there, when I do that, or it's like then I'll be happy or then I'll feel this or that or the other. But it's like if you're just living to get there, you like the process is the best part of it, just like you
Yep.
said.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. One curious question I would ask is what is your favorite thing that you do with your feet that most people would do with their hands that when you do it, it just is fascinating.
Okay, I know this is weird, but this is like an old college trick that I used to do. Everyone would give me their beer bottle because I could do the twist off tops better than anyone and faster. But
Really?
the twist tops on the beer bottle,
Yeah, yeah,
I know
yeah. So you
some
do
you
it
have to
with
use
your
an opener,
toes.
but I would just twist those open. And so many people had the hardest time doing that. So they just pass it over to me.
That is awesome. That's so cool. Um, well, I'm curious, Jessica, if people want to get more info and see, what you're up to nowadays. I know you're doing a lot. I saw the documentary that you have as well that's out that's just I was watching, I was like tearing up watching it. It's just like unbelievable. It's just an amazing documentary that you had that's put together. But if people want to get more info on you and see what you're up to, where's the best place that they can find you?
Well, if they want to watch that documentary you're talking about, it's free on Amazon Prime. So anyone can watch it if you have Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And if you want to find out more about my speaking, coaching, or my book, we can go to jessicacox.com and find out more there and follow me on social media too. My Facebook, which is my biggest following, is JCMS Official, basically Jessica Cox Motivational Services. So JCMS Official.
Love it. Awesome. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well so everybody has access to it. One last thing I'd be curious. This is something we ask all of our guests because we're all about finding direction in life, but ultimately doing it through execution. I would be curious, what would you say is one thing someone listening to this can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um,
And it can be,
hmm,
not like find direction for the rest of your life and all of that, but it can even be something you can do in the next day, 2 days, 24, 48 hours to find direction for the next
got it.
month or the next 6 months or the next year even.
Okay, I will say because flying made me very uncomfortable. It was my greatest fear. Do something that makes you feel uncomfortable.
I love that. Easy, simple, and then it's going to get you to grow.
Mm-hmm. And
Love
you'd
it,
be
love it, love
surprised
it.
what comes with it.
Awesome. Well, any last, I don't know, words, encouraging thoughts that you would love to give our listeners on, just, what they can do to find direction in their life, or just life guiding advice?
Um, just definitely don't give in to that, that first failure, because you'd be surprised what you can learn by maybe not doing it right the first time or the second time or the third time. I wouldn't have been a pilot if it wasn't for those attempts that I had to keep trying and not give up. So don't ever give up, and don't let other people's lack of confidence in you pull you down.
Hmm. How would you say that you can build confidence in yourself when maybe others don't have confidence in you?
One of the things I like about confidence is how it's a byproduct of doing something that you wouldn't have expected that you could do. So going out and doing something
Hmm.
like maybe walking a mile in a short period of time, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And you have this boost of confidence, and you have that boost of kind of like adrenaline feeling. Um, so I think that's what I would say, is that it's an amazing way to build confidence, is to do something uh, unexpected of you, and then see how you feel about it.
Love that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It's been an absolute honor to have you. And just thank you for sharing all your wisdom with everybody.
Okay, thank you. Take care, everyone. Okay,
Take
bye.
care. Bye.